much. Thanks for coming. My name is MariCarmen. I work at the Education Innovation Center of the University of the West of England. Basically, my presentation today will be a little bit of a walk through my career lately, for the last 8 years or so, since I've been using immersive environments for teaching and learning. So I've got quite a few hours of experience. It's going to be quite practical. I've got quite a few hours, thousands probably, experience in using these environments for teaching and learning since I came across them for the first time. Must have been maybe 2007, 8, possibly. I can't remember very well, but there was a snow in Bristol. I was snowed in the first time somebody in the e-learning group suggested, oh, we cannot meet face-to-face. We couldn't drive into the university, so why don't we meet in a virtual world? And at the time, they were very popular in the press. I had heard of it, but I really had no interest whatsoever in going in until this meeting was suggested. And there I went. And the first thing I realized is how unfamiliar everything was, how useless I felt. I couldn't really navigate my way around. Everything seemed foreign to me, and I didn't know the etiquette, how to interact with other avatars that were coming my way. So I thought at the time I was a placement officer at UWE. My background is in languages and linguistics, and in this role, I was in charge of the preparation of students for the year abroad. And I had been doing it quite traditionally, with seminars and workshops, giving my students information about what they were going to find when they were out in Spain or Latin America. A few examples of things they would encounter, but nothing really experiential. I couldn't make them experience what was going to be stay in a foreign work or study in a foreign country and encounter people talking a different language, until I came across this, and I thought, well, maybe I could use these environments to help my students get familiar to something unfamiliar. And in fact, it was fantastic because there is a pool of Spanish speakers of all the varieties in these environments that they could potentially meet and talk to and listen to. And so I thought, well, this can work, if not for anything else, but at least they will practice the language in a more authentic environment than in a classroom in Bristol. And I thought they will be native speakers, different accents. So I applied for some funding. Luckily, I got a little bit, only a tiny little bit of money to carry out this project that I wanted to use to explore these environments, basically for the preparation, at this stage, for the preparation of students for the year abroad. So with no money really, I went in and I saw what was around. I didn't really design anything myself. I just used environments that had been created by other people. As you probably know, in these virtual world environments, everything's been created by the users. So I got in touch with the people that had different islands and had designed different things, and started taking my students for these trips. So we were in Machu Picchu, in a virtual world. We actually, what was very interesting is that the students could participate, take part on events that they had listened to about or watched videos about before. For example, the Day of the Dead, we had already in the classes gone through it, and they knew what it was, and they had seen videos, but they could participate. They could go and take flowers and go to the poetry readings and do different things. And for this was a very rich experience for them, so they enjoyed that. There were replicas. Some of the replicas we see there. Gijón is actually one of the cities we were using for our placement. So some of the students had already been there, and some of the students were going to go into Gijón, and it is quite a loyal representation of it. So that was interesting. They also I found a place where they could, run by the Spanish Seguridad Social, like the NHS, where students could actually speak to doctors and talk to them about problems. So by the end of the experience, it was quite successful. Students felt that they had improved their language skills. They had the chance to speak and listen different accents. They had made friends in these environments. They learned quite a lot about the socio-cultural aspects of Spanish-speaking countries, so they felt quite empowered, really. They felt very confident, and that was the main thing that they all of them commented on, is how confident they felt to now go and really take a plane and go and travel abroad. So if nothing else, that's the feeling it gave them. So that was, for me, was that it actually filled me with confidence as well, and I decided to carry on using these technologies for education and keep on exploring them and seeing what the possibilities. I was starting to realize, wow, there's so many possibilities that I haven't even really started to touch yet. So, and one of them, I had several courses at the time that were distance learning courses. One of the usual complaints, possibly, I can't find a better word, but of distance learner students is that they feel a little bit dissociated. They don't feel they belong to the university, they feel isolated, and they have this sense of dislocation. So at the time we had different students. They never meet other students. They don't have the same experience as students that come on campus, and that was coming across quite clearly. And I wanted to address this issue of distance learning. I wanted them to have the same experience as students that come on campus live, which is basically campus life. So then I had a little bit more money, and we decided to design our own virtual campus in a 3D. I'm talking about immersive environments. As you can see them now, they're quite 2D, but obviously they can be used if we use a headset or we use any other virtual reality equipment. We can make them more immersive. So the level of immersive depends on what other tools you use them. We also have, we didn't necessarily make it look, it wasn't on purpose, that it does look a little bit similar. We have a harbor. It looks a bit similar from that point of view to Bristol. We wanted to convey, because we were going to bring people from all over the world, so we wanted to convey the sense of exchange of cultures, and where that will welcome everybody to come in. That was the idea of having the port. And we also have our own hot air balloon, like also very typical from Bristol, where students can take a tour and visit the rest of the campus and car parks, etc. So there's a few pictures of what the reality of Bristol and the physical campus is like. Not necessarily similar, but that wasn't the idea. The idea is that students, wherever they came from in the world, will have a place, will have this sense of place, this sense of belonging, and it's normally that sensation of attachment to a location. And because these environments are immersive, they are very immersive, and you pretty much forget you are behind a computer screen, and you really transport yourself through your avatar to this location. Therefore, they feel. Students say, well, if this environment was to disappear now, I will miss it. I will miss it if it disappears as well. That's where I work. When you ask me where I work in that campus there. Yeah. So it was giving all these students that were coming. We designed this Masters in Education in Virtual Worlds. So we had students coming from all over the world, really. We had students in Canada, in the States, Australia, New Zealand, Argentina, different places in Europe, a lot in the UK. We had Japan as well, we had Saudi Arabia. So all these people came together. This Masters in Education was aimed for educators, for instructional designers, developers. There were also a few therapists, people that were interested in exploring and finding out what these environments could do for teaching and learning. And for me, it's a lot to do with flexibility, not only in terms of place and pace of studies. Obviously, we saw before that guy with the baby and in front of the computer. So giving the students that are normally quite busy, educators are very busy people, the flexibility to do this from home, that's one of them, from wherever they are. It was a very rich group, obviously having educators from all these parts of the world that we hardly could put them, we couldn't put them together in a room physically to have these rich discussions that we were having, because everybody had a completely different background and a completely idea of education according to obviously their context. So it's been, and it is being, it's now, this course is running out, although we're still in the final year. Students are now working on their presentations and projects, but it's been a very, very rich experience. We ran all the sessions in a virtual world, in several virtual world environments, and we ran them synchronously, which was a little bit of a challenge, because for some people it had to be very early in the morning, and for some of them very late, if you see the different time zones. So that was a challenging bit, creating timetables that were friendly for everybody and that everybody would agree to. But we did manage to get this happening, and we had people working on these environments, collaborating together, and seeing how they can use this for their own purpose, for their own practice, and what are the best ways. And so we explored every possible thing. We obviously replicated what happens in a traditional classroom, pretty much. I don't think, in my opinion, this isn't the most creative way of using a virtual environment, but it can happen. We can actually have, like you can see there, desks and a very traditional classroom where students are sitting in rows, or a little bit more alternative where students are sitting in a circle, but there is still a PowerPoint, as you can see, behind, our students are following and discussions are happening. There is one additional advantage, I think, of using this environment as opposed to this, and for me, it's the multiple interaction that happens. While I'm here talking to you, I'm talking to you, and you're hopefully listening or not, I don't know, but I'm talking to you, at you is not very interactive, really. However, when I'm there, yeah, I might be talking. Sometimes, you know, there are points, there are things that I want to say, or I have my PowerPoint. But at the same time, people are using the chat, the group chat. It happens in some conferences where you have the Twitter going on, and people are giving their opinions, their questions. So at the same time as you're talking, you can see what people are commenting on, and so you can tailor a little bit your lecture or your conversation, rather than just talking with a script and blah, blah, blah. You can follow what the questions are or where the conversation is going from the students. So they are, even replicating a traditional environment makes it richer just by using immersive environments. So this is one way of doing things. There are many other ways that I found enable and empower students for learning, and it's very much, for me, it's almost a strength-based education in many ways, because it's quite individualized, and it also can really address so many different learning styles. Than this is a learning style where people have to listen, really, and if you're very visual, or if you're kinesthetic, if you like moving and doing things and creating things, these are amazing spaces. One of the possibilities is traveling. You can travel to different places in the world, in the virtual world, and in some cases, have some very good interpretation. Like the case of Le Mans Saint Michel is a really good interpretation. I've been in both the virtual one and the real one, and it's actually very accurate. You can visit the pyramids inside, Stonehenge, wherever you want to visit in the world. This, imagine for people with disabilities that don't have certain possibilities. This is really good, and also, not even that. I remember there was, at one point, the Sistine Chapel, an interpretation of it represented in a virtual world, and people were saying it's so much better than going to the physical one, because when you go to the physical one, in and out, you really cannot spend, as you would know, a lot of time there. However, when you are in an immersive environment like this, you can use your camera, zoom in and out, really explore the paintings, and spend as long as you like. So in terms of traveling geographically, they offer a lot of possibilities. Also in terms of time traveling, so for educators that teach, for example, history, they can go to interpretations of the First World War and have a little bit of an idea of what it would be like to walk along the trenches, the noises, something that makes the immersion quite interesting is the soundscapes that I'm doing quite a lot of work on that, because I realize how important it is to have really the soundscape, how important it is for that feeling of immersion and feeling that you are there and that you are there with other people and that you are sharing that experience. And it's something that it's something probably that stays much more in pupils or students' memory than something that they've been told, because they are experiencing it themselves. So it's like going, like when we were kids on a field trip. These are the experiences that really stay with you pretty much for the rest of your life. What the teachers were telling me when I was 10, 12, I've forgotten. But what I was doing with other people when they took us out to a museum I remember. So it's a similar sort of feeling. Other things that can be explored are the body parts, for example. You can. This is something that you cannot do in real life, but let's say if you are a teacher of GCSEs and you have to, I don't know, study the reproductive systems, that's the inside of a testicle, the picture at the top. Or you have the heart. Who would know? But yeah, apparently. An amazing, I think, affordance of these immersive environments. For me, one of the most important is the affordance of co-creation. Students create things together. They work together creating something, and this is quite special. And for example, in this case, they work in little groups on the interpretation of a Neolithic monument, Stanton Drew, this one. So other things, and my background, as I said before, is in languages, role-playing. It's always quite difficult to get the students into role, yes, when some of them are shy or we have quite a boring environment around here. It's very easy to get into the costume, to have the right scenery behind you. Like I'm there in a Tudor England being tortured somehow, and this is a female's prison. So different possibilities for different role plays, giving students possibilities to explore the environment a bit more. One very successful simulation we ran at the University of the West of England is for students of forensics. We have a crime scene investigation. This crime scene investigation, we have a physical house, like you see on the left, where students would have to go, as in, you know, the University of the West of England prepares the students pretty much for, it's pretty much a real world education where students will be doing what they are asked to be doing in their jobs. So crime scene, they have to go find the evidence, the fingerprints, blood, and we have a house in Glenside that we use for this purpose. However, with the number of students and the long it takes to clean it and prepare it again for the next lot, it can be quite challenging. What we've done is replicate that crimson investigation in a virtual world environment. The cognitive processes the students go through are exactly the same. Yes, if they have to organize evidence, they have to do it the same way in collecting the fingerprints. The processes, what they do first and then what they do next, and all that is the same thing. So it is a possibility of being practicing before the assessment 24/7. This is open 24/7 for students to practice, and then when they come to the real life assessment, they can do it. Not only that, this offers also, we also have a court in our virtual campus where students can work with lawyers, and so carry out the simulation a little bit more so that different disciplines are involved, as it would happen in real life. Yeah? The people doing forensics would then interact with the police, with the lawyers to do. So we're trying to bring a multidisciplinary approach for these simulations. And I'm going to be finishing shortly. This is another project we are currently working on in a different virtual environment, but the technology is basically roughly the same. And it's an interpretation of Avery, here in Wiltshire. And what we are trying to do is, our interpretation is based with taking the houses away, as you can see, and we're trying to think or to what it was like thousands of years ago. So we've put a soundscape that was more likely to be in Neolithic times. So we have lots of wolves and animals that now we don't have around, and so we've created an environment more of an idea of what we thought Avery looked like in Neolithic times. And we bring the students there, and that's why I was saying, for me, one of the richness of these environments is that the students are there together, they're doing things together, so they will have to do activities together, move rocks, or whatever they do, and this can give them an experience of what the original, what the people who moved the stones there, what we still don't know what the purpose of Avery is really. It's not known yet, so have different ideas of what might have worked then. And we're still exploring these environments. We're still seeing things that work and things that don't. And that's my contribution today. I'm gonna leave it here. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer. Thank you very much for being here today.
One question there.
I'm taking one lesson, I'm not sure if that's the right one, but hopefully. In order to make people having the feeling that they belong to this virtual experience, they seem to be like they need to share something, like some sort of experience. That's what I'm getting. But is there any other important ingredients to get this sense of belonging to a virtual environment?
I think sharing experiences is one of the biggest. One of the things that was very probably surprising for the whole team that was teaching in these environments, including myself, is how quickly the students gelled and how much they bonded in only a very few sessions. Obviously, there was a common interest. Everybody that was there, they have chosen to work on these environments, and they were all enthusiastic, and so there is an element of motivation and having a common interest, and then sharing experiences, and whether this makes people, I always think, because there is a question of, in a way, you are, obviously all the students were known to us and to their peers, but there is an element of hiding. You are hiding behind an avatar. So I think that makes you as well open up, which is quite strange, but open up probably a little bit more than you would in a much more, or for people who are shy, in a much more challenging environment, in a face-to-face. So especially for people who have some social phobias or things like that, this created an environment where they felt safe. So that's another point, the feeling safety and feeling that that they are protected, and if anything happens, they can switch off and go.
I'm seeing all kinds of hands shoot up, but we're also a little bit delayed on time, and I'm seeing stressed AV people. So I guess
I'm
if
gonna
people
be around.
can, yeah,
I'm gonna
you'll
be
have
around.
to.
So just come and talk to me if you. Yes, I'm gonna be around today and tomorrow as well. So
Fantastic. Well,
thank
yeah,
you very
really
much.
brilliant. Thank you,
for
MariCarmen.
inviting me. Thank you.